Welcome back, Nine World Chronicles. So today, as I do another breakdown in mythology, we break down some of the best characters in mythology. Today, I wanted to introduce a concept that is, I think, far overly ignored. Something that we should talk about. And this is the toughest babies ever in the history of mythology. I have three great candidates today for who is literally the toughest baby of all time. And when I say the toughest baby of all time, I'm talking about babies who overcame and maybe even thrived in their very tough set of circumstances, right? So let's look at the babies that we have here, okay? You can see right here, we've got three entries, okay? You can see I've got on either side of me, I've got Hercules and his father, Zeus, over here, right? Both of them grew up against tough odds. And below me here, I've got Herus, who has to take on his uncle Set. And let's remember the baby versions of each of these gods and how these things got to be here. Baby Hercules is taking up too much screen. Let's move big Hercules over. All right, baby Hercules, taking too much of my shine there. Okay. So these are all classic stories per the regions that they come from. From Greek myths, these two on the perimeters here, and this is the, between Heru and Set is one of the most classic tales, one of the most important tales from Kemetic or Egyptian mythology. It was really about the struggle of order versus chaos, what Set represents. But as their babies, let's talk about what their challenges were as babies. You can see baby Hercules here. Nice looking baby, we got the wavy hair kind of going. Let's get big Hercules out of the way. And baby Hercules looks like he would have a charmed life. His father was Zeus. His mother was a queen. And you would think that's all the recipe for everything being good for you. But not in this Greek tale, because Greek tales are full of tragedy. So your parentage has to be turned against you. And it was. Because while his father was Zeus, of course, we know, was married to Hera. You can see Hera right here. I don't know if you know much about Hera. Hera's one of the baddest goddesses out there. You can see very nicely stylized here. Great dress on. Love Hera. Very, very powerful goddess. Do not cross Hera is something that they say in mythology. She's very vengeful. Well, Zeus happens to be married to her. And one of her attributes as a goddess is that she was a goddess who represented marriage or protected marriage. It's kind of hard to have that message and get offerings when your husband is the king cheating on you. And this has been going on for thousands of years. He's been cheating on her. He's got all kinds of babies out there. We know this about Zeus. And finally he has baby Hercules is born. And that's it. She's absolutely done with it. All right. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of all these babies that you're just creating out there. I'm a laughing stock. You're making me look bad at work. So she says, I'm going to come down. I'm going to get this Hercules kid. And ironically, Hercules' mother knew that there was going to be a problem with this goddess, which is why she named him Heracles. She's at the root of his name, that I am tied to you, that I'm going to be a tribute to you, and that he would do great things for her. Unfortunately, Hera's not having it, any part of it. And you can see from the statue in the back, she instantly sends a flock of, or at least a couple of deadly asps or serpents to kill him while he was a baby. But Hercules being, justifiably on the list of the toughest babies of all time, deals with this snake issue no problem. Doesn't even realize the issue. He's so strong as a baby that he kills the snakes. But his rivalry with Hera would not end. This would basically define who he was in mythology for most of his written details. The 12 labors that he has to perform all come from her. His final ending comes through her. And then, of course, his last bit, he would become a god. He would become among the gods. But he endures a lot. He loses his family. He has to do all these labors. He has to do things that are impossible. He's forced to do because Hera she's like, imagine a goddess sitting up above you, right? And she's got a rock, and she's just like looking for an opportunity just to get you with that rock. That's what Hercules had to endure, having one of the most powerful enemies in the universe from childhood. Okay, a terrible story. And his father should have known better. You would think his own father, this guy over here would show some empathy, because his situation was also horrible. You can see adult Zeus. There's not any pictures of baby Zeus. I couldn't find any pictures of baby Zeus. But you can see his father down there, Cronus, who's about to eat one of his kids. He's eating these kids. He knows that his kids are going to eventually overthrow him. And his solution is, I'm killing all these kids. So he swallows every single one of his kids. All of them. This guy is swallowing. Nobody swallowed as many kids as Cronus. The only person who's even close is Lil Kim. Okay? That's how prolific he was at swallowing babies. So finally, on the last one, his wife, who was Gaia, says, I don't want any more of my children being eaten. So she hides Zeus away and allows Zeus to grow up in relative solitude, right, on a quiet island until he's large enough and strong enough to challenge his father. And what he does is, with his mother's help, he mixes up a concoction that forces his father to throw up all the other fully grown gods, all of his brothers and sisters who were still there. So Hades, Poseidon, and so forth, right? All the gods, Apollo, all those guys were there inside of his stomach. So they all emerge and they're now fully grown. And this launches the war of the Olympians versus the Titans, which would be a classic definition of what Greek mythology was. It's at its foundation, the establishment of Zeus's new empire as he sits at the head. Although he was the last born, he frees everyone else, and they take on, with the help of the 100-handers, who are some of their siblings, actually, as it were. And then the last one we see here is in the middle, and we see the classic story of young Heru versus his uncle. And this is central to Kemetic Egyptian mythology, because this is about order versus chaos. Set himself is the representation of chaos, and that you see that image there. That's the image of baby Heru, or Horus as you may know him, breastfeeding from his mother, who is the goddess Aset. It's been translated into Isis by Greek mythology, but we know who this figure is. And the story is, of course, that an enraged Set kills his father, who was the teacher of knowledge to humans in early Kemetic times and early Egyptian times. And he swears, so essentially chaos has taken over the kingdom because he sits on the throne. And Heru has to grow up constantly watching out for his uncle's vigilant eye. Remember, Set is the top warrior for the Kemetic gods, for these Egyptian gods. There is no god. This is the god of chaos. He's the god of war. There's no more formidable god. And Heru has to live with this on his neck. So he grows up and he eventually gets the strength to battle his uncle. And they battle for decades. And there are many battles between the two of them. And one loses an eye, and Horus loses an eye at some point. And Set loses his testicles. And this was a bloody battle that finally came to a meeting of the gods, who decided that Heru would be the righteous king of all the universe. That Set needed to fall back, that chaos needed to recede, and that Heru ushered in a new order of righteousness, so as it were. So each of these babies grew up to be titans among their respective worlds, despite some incredible circumstances that were surrounding them. But I'm going to tell you why. Well, I've got my choice of who the toughest baby of all time is, and I'll tell you why I'm disqualifying the other two who don't make it. Okay. I'll start with Zeus. Zeus is immediately disqualified because although you did a very blessed thing, tough thing, taking on your pops, was a bloody war, you had a lot of help. Your mother had the forethought to replace you with a stone so your father would think that he ate you and then hide you away. You actually had nothing to do with that. And then when you finally grew up, you went out and you called all your brothers, who were powerful gods themselves, also fully grown. And based on the hierarchy, maybe Poseidon should have been the king anyway. But nevertheless, you did a righteous thing. You took down a true power, a baby eater. Got to be the worst kind of god out there. But you weren't the toughest baby. The next person who also wasn't the toughest baby, and I know this is going to surprise you, the toughest baby was not Hercules either, right? Because although you had one of the toughest opponents of all time in this goddess going up against you, you actually lost. In the end of it, she tricked you into killing your own family, and you went crazy and ultimately died, exhausting yourself in a rampage. So Hera actually kind of won, but in the end, the gods felt sorry for you and brought you up to heaven, knowing how much righteous stuff you had done on earth. So that leaves the toughest baby of all time being Heru. Not only did you grow up an half orphan, you lost your father, right? You don't have anyone to guide you, except your mother is a badass and she's training you. But you go on to defeat the one god that no other god could. You fought Set several times and always either held your own or came out victorious. And through that legacy of your defiance of chaos and establishing a new kingdom, we have to unabashedly give the reign of the toughest baby of all time to small baby Heru, although we have some good competitors. So I've done videos about most of these gods that I've talked about here today. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about it, a little backstory about some of them, please go and check them out. As always, we ask that you like and subscribe. Make sure you click that notification button as well. And please make sure you stop in at 9 World Chronicles again.